Yeah. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen,
Everybody move.
You are entering the new zone, the place where you can learn music production like never before. Yeah. All right. This is King David for Fruity Loops University. And for those that don't know how cool this place is, let me just show you real quick. First of all, we have many different camera angles. You can come into the studio, check out the overhead, learn chords, scales, notes, you name it. Then we bring you here to where you can look at King David talking to you all sincerely like a politician. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Monica. Well, you know. And the next one is the Chord Board, where we teach you chords. All right. And finally, we bring you into the desktop view where you can actually see every single mouse click that I make in any software that I'm using at any given time. It doesn't get any better than this. All right, so I need you to start telling your friends and families, ring the alarm, bring them down here. It's really, really, really affordable, by the way. You can even test out some of the sample classes for only $5.99. All right, now, with no further ado, that's another French word there. I want to also show you that we have a chat where you can chat with other students, both two-way and then three-way, because you talk to each other, you talk to me, and I talk back to you. So that's 3 ways. All right, now let's get it popping. Today is Thursday. We're going to talk about mixing and mastering. We're going to get your questions. You're going to get involved. Brenda Black is in the house. Brandon's in the house. Franchise Josh, a.k.a. Scandalous Criminals, in the house. All right, and of course I'm here. So we're going to start today. We're going to talk about mixing and mastering. You know, we could do a class a week for a whole year and never touch everything that we need to learn. So let's kind of keep an open mind as we learn and try and remember that this is a journey, it's not a destination. So many of us want to get down to making beats and selling tracks, and that's great. Keep doing that. Keep selling tracks. But be a lifelong student, because I have dedicated myself to being a lifelong student of music production, songwriting, and anything music. So, and that's where the payoff comes. That's when it becomes really cool. All right. So let's talk about mixing. Y'all ready to talk about mixing and mastering? What are we going to talk about today? Oh, I found some plugins, by the way, if I can take us on a side tangent real quick. I found this really great piano plugin. It's called the Prova, if you haven't gotten that yet. All right, now let me go ahead and left click on it. And I want you to hear it because it's a brilliant sounding piano. It's the best one that I've ever heard in FL Studio so far. I'm sure there's a better one somewhere, but this is my favorite. You hear how clean it sounds? I don't have enough room here to play that song, but I also want to show you, yeah, it's really good. Prova. I'll show you where to download it. Matter of fact, we have all the links in our website. But let me switch cameras so you can see the overhead. I can give you a hand cam view. All right. Yeah, it sounds really good, man. I was super impressed because I've been, I have not really found a good piano for FL Studio, and this one is finally nice and pretty. Isn't that nice? Or even classical? Really nice and pretty. You can always go ahead and send it through effects so that you can make it sound sweeter, right? I mean, that's the easy thing. We all know how to use our effects. So we can just go ahead and put it out through any effect that we want. Let's say we go through 3 and we put a reverb on it. I like the Fruity Reverb, but I'm also beginning to expand and try other reverbs. See? That's nice. Not bad, not bad. So anyhow, here is the name. It's called the Prova by Safwan Matni. I don't know who that is. And of course, it doesn't. I don't see any controls, so you can control the timbre or the pitch, or well, you can control the pitch. So I don't really know how you can really customize it. So I think what you get is what you see, or what you see is what you get. I got my little sayings mixed up backwards. Any questions? I'll show you where I got it, so that if you guys want to go to get it, just go to Fruity Loops University, go to the forum, and I think we have VST link. It's probably going to be on the second page or third page. Yep. Look under Josh left something for more free VSTs. It's right on this page here, the VSTforfree.com. All right, and I think you can search for it or just go to piano, and then it should be here somewhere. Where are we? Flygo. Try and look at what people have rated them, because they're pretty accurate. Like this one would probably sound pretty good. I haven't listened to that one yet. So I get the highest rated ones. I don't want the ones that if people are saying it's not good, I believe them. But then again, you might want to check for yourself. This was pretty high rated, so I went ahead and checked it out, and I was pretty impressed with the sound. I like the quality. It gives me the feeling of actually playing a real piano. All right, questions? Anything? All right, now let's talk about mixing and mastering today. Some of the things that I'm finding that I'm hearing out there in people's mixes, including my own, is that again, we should try and get a better understanding of how to create depth into our mixes, and we can use that. We can do that with reverbs. So we're going to talk a little bit about reverb. Using reverb to create space. All right, is that cool? Can we go in that direction today? You guys cool with that, or is this something else you want to do? All right, because I'm going to have to take you to the chord board to make it happen. I'm taking you guys to the hoop. Cool with that? All right, cool. So yesterday we worked on some chords, and we had a pretty good class. It was me and Prenda. We hung out. We did our thing. We had a couple new students come. I opened up the class, invited the public in, and fortunately it was probably too late. All right. So we want to talk about creating space. Creating space. Creating space. And when we're talking about creative space, a lot of times you guys hear productions that are done in Pro Tools or all the so-called better softwares, and you'll hear and notice that everything sounds so clean and crisp and separated, and everything it just seems so distinct. Like you can hear each instrument, and and that's really something that you can achieve no matter what you're using. You can achieve that with the FL Studio. I had to get a different pen because the one I'm using is not too distinct. All right, one of the ways we can do that is to use reverb. Okay, reverb is nothing but a simulating a space, an environment. Reverb is nothing but a room simulator. All right, and I can't seem to find a good pen. How's that? Not showing up so good. All right, cool. So I want to draw something for you. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to get me a better pen. We're going to talk about space today. And when I say space, I don't mean Jupiter and Mars. I mean space in terms of room space, area. All right? Now, I've showed many of you people have seen this diagram before. I'm going to show it again because some of you have not. All right, and we want to look at a mix similar to a half of a circle, right? That's what a mix looks like. Here's your left, here's your right. And then I want you to imagine that in the center of this line, we're going to find the center somehow. It's probably not going to be perfect, but I'll find the closest thing to the center that I can find. All right, so we have our mix. Let's say that this is the center. Uh-oh. That's what happens when you kick your camera. You knock it out of commission. All right, so that's our center of the mix right here. All right, so we can label that with a C, right? But all along the mix we have, let's say we call these pan points. We call them pan points. In other words, these are areas that you can pan your sound to, right? Many of you guys have seen this already, I know, so I appreciate you, those who have seen this, being patient. All right, so this is what a mix looks like. Now if you're working with surround sound, that mix is going to be a complete circle, obviously, right? But we're not working with surround sound, we're working with regular 2D sound, right? So when we think of a mix, we need to think left and right, and then depth. In other words, dimension, how far up front that sound is. And actually up front is going to be closer to the listener, all right? So this is actually far away, any sound that's here, and this is near. Anything that's close to the listener is near, all right? So we have to kind of, I thought I was able to get the word far in on the picture, but you can see there, that's where far is. All right, so we have to begin to mix using this picture in our head, because this is what true mixing is. So the question becomes, how do you make sounds go left, right, near, far? Okay, how with the tools that we have, FL Studio or whatever program we're using, how do we make this illusion a reality? Because this is nothing but an illusion, all right? We are audio magicians. That's our job. We're supposed to trick the listener into believing that this is what they're hearing. All right, so we know how to pan left and right, obviously. But how do we create the near and far effect? All right, I'm going to give you the answer, so I'm not asking, that's a rhetorical question. We create the near and the far through volume. Volume. Okay? That's how we do near and far. All right, but that's not the only way to create the near and far effect. All right, the other way we can create the near and far effect is through reverb. Okay? Because reverb simulates a space or a room. All right? So what we want to do is begin to use reverb to create spaces within spaces within spaces within spaces within spaces. Some of those spaces are going to be near, some of those spaces are going to be far. If you were in the middle of a gymnasium, you ever been in your school gym and you bounce that basketball and you hear that echo it's like pow, pow, pow. It really fills up the whole gymnasium, right? A couple bounces and that's all you can hear through the room. You're in the middle of a big, large space. And the audio, and I need to give you a diagram for this too. I've ran out of diagram space, all right? But you're in the middle of a big gymnasium. I'm going to use my board down here to show you. Let's imagine this being a big gymnasium. And you're in the middle dribbling the ball, right? You dribble that ball, and that sound has so much space to cover. It's got to go a long way just to hit those walls. And then those reverbs come right back at you. Those sounds come right back to the middle. Okay? And that's why you hear such a big, loud echo, is because it has to travel so far. Right? So that sound is active for a long period of time. Now, take that same ball and put yourself in a smaller room And it doesn't take that long for those echoes or those reverbs to return back to you. All right. So it's very possible that in a mix, you can create all these different atmospheres or all of these different rooms around each of your instruments, which would give the listener the illusion of things being close and things being far. The one that's going to be far is the one that has the biggest room for the reverb to travel in. The one that's going to be close is the one that has the smallest room for the reverb to travel in. Is that making sense to you guys? Okay. So these are the things that we have control over as audio engineers, as mixologists, or whatever you want to call yourself. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So these are the things that we have control over. We have control over panning. We have control over distance, near and far, right? We have control over separation, which is nothing but panning stretched out. So stereo separation is nothing but creating a bigger circle to work with. All right, if you close that circle, now I want you to imagine, kind of watch the screen and imagine that this was pliable. In other words, I could grab this circle from both ends and pull it further apart, right? Now, in this circle, I've got different sounds. Some of them are near. These dots are going to represent sound. This is going to be a bass. That one's near. This is going to be a snare. That one's far. This was going to be piano. That one is midway. And I'll go ahead and name them. Bass, snare, piano, and let's give one more instrument, snare. Let's say hi-hat, okay? And I want the hi-hat to be a little closer. All right, so we got a bass, snare, piano, hi-hat. Piano is going to be pan to the left, bass is going to be pan to the right, snare straight up in the middle, hi-hats off to the left. Each one of these are at different locations in the mind of the listener. Some of them are closer, some of them are further out, some of them are far away. All right? All right, now if I'm able to, imagine me able to pull this circle and stretch it farther so you can't even see it on the screen. That's what stereo separation does. But if I'm able to actually stretch it, guess what happens to all these instruments? Their relationship becomes stretched also. So now the distance between this snare and this hi-hat gets greater and greater. The bass gets greater and greater. The piano gets greater and greater further away, right? So now you can hear each instrument much more distinctly. All right, now there's a pro and a con. There's a plus and a minus to this. You can hear it much more distinctly, but whatever reverb or effect that they're running through, you'll also hear that much more distinctly. That's why when you over separate your music, it thins out and you can hear all the flaws, you can hear all the things. All right? Okay, so now here's what I want to do. I want to be able to help you overcome that flaw issue. I want to help you overcome the thinning out when you create a stereo mix. And here's two things I'm going to have you do. The first thing I'm going to have you do is use less effects. Use less effects. Now, what I mean, I don't mean by don't use as many effects. I mean use them less. Like, in other words, when you're seasoning food, sometimes it's best that a little bit of seasoning is better than over seasoning, right? So this way, when you go to stretch it out, the reverb and all the different effects that you use on them don't become that apparent. Now, if they become apparent after stretching out and it starts to sound thin, turn down the effects a little bit. Simple. And then you cure that problem. Now you have distinct instruments separated from each other with very little effect, and now you can hear everything clearly. All right. The other thing I'm going to have you do, all right, so you're going to use less effects, right? The other thing I'm going to have you do, and I don't know how I just forgot what I was going to have you do. The other thing I'm going to have you do is when you, okay, got it. When you stretch it, I'm going to have you strengthen the middle, strengthen the center, Well, how do you do that? In other words, reinforce your center channel. The center channel is not going to change. Imagine me stretching this out. The only thing that will remain exactly the same is that middle. It ain't going nowhere. The center is always going to be the center. But these instruments that are on pan to the left and the right, those are the ones that are going to become stretched out, and their effects are going to be exposed, and you're going to have to cut down those effects a little bit. All right. Now, I know this is really probably deep and in depth, and what I want to do is now start explaining all this and making it plain to you so that it's not so scary. All right. But this is what I'm hearing in people's mixes, including my own. I'm hearing very thin mixes sometimes, overstretched. We like using that. We like using the stereo separator, but we don't quite understand how to use it properly. So we have to learn how to do that. And then I'm hearing that people are not mixing with a sense of awareness of this, how this works. Some people, or some of us, including myself, I get to the point where you get on autopilot and we start mixing based on our last mix. Well, that worked on the last one, so let's try it on this one. We got to get over that. Each song needs its own mix. Okay? All right, so here we go. Let's go. Let's get it. Let's take it out of the classroom and get on to the computer, and let's see what we're talking about. Is that cool? Okay, so here we are. We got that. We got all that stuff on the screen now. Let's go to the desktop and pull this thing off. Let's pull it off here. All right. Cool. Well, it's good, man. I'm glad everybody's here. By the way, I like it when there's one person or when there's 100 people. It's all the same to me. I'm doing what I love to do, and I'm doing what people I love doing it with. So I don't think I can ask for anything more than that. All right, so let's go ahead and make a mix. You know, I'm always good on making a mix. You're probably like, no, don't make another track. All right, let's use something basic. Let's go ahead with basic instruments. Let's use the instruments that we use on the diagram. We had a bass. We've got a piano. Let's get a bass. We're going to use the boo bass. Left click, open that up. Let's get a basic drum setup here. FPC. We'll use a rock and roll drum kit like the Tama or the Tama, whatever way you pronounce it, which is the name of a drum kit. I am not too thrilled with these preset drum sounds. Okay, cool. So we use that as our template for this. And what we're going to do is practice what I just showed you. Okay, so let's get a tempo. It's going to be kind of rock and roll fast. Cool. 152 is the tempo. And then what I'm going to do is we'll start with a bass line, something I normally don't do. I like that. Good melody. All right, let's go with that. We're gonna hit metronome, hit play, and let's lay it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's my rhythm right there. Wow, how does that happen, man? I played it and it comes out short. So I'm gonna go ahead and articulate it like I showed you before. Ah, look how that came out. Perfect. All right, let's listen back. All right, good. Let's get a drum. Let's get a drum. All right, keep it real rock and roll. Ready? 1, 2, ready, play. Uh-oh. Messed that up. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, ready, play. Ooh. All right, good. Hi-hat. All right, good enough. Record it. 1, 2, ready, and. Playback. All right, get my piano in there. I don't like that little stop, but I'll work with it in a minute. All right, we're going to use that melody right there. Ready? 1, 2, ready, play. Uh-oh, one more time. All right. All right, not bad. All right, so first off, we're going to start with that semicircle, and I'm going to check in with you guys. It's not bad. Pretty rock and roll, man. Pretty on fire, as my man says. Gary L Music just showed up. How you doing, Mr. Gary L? Brenda Black's in the house. Brandon is in the house, and I am King David. And we're talking about, just to get you up to speed, Gary L, we're talking about mixing. And I'll show you what the board looks like so you can catch up on what we talked about. But we're talking about here is how to create space. What's up, Gary? We're talking about, if you can see on the screen, how to create space using Reverb. And we talked about how to incorporate all of that into what's called circular mixing. We've talked about this before, but I just wanted to reintroduce everybody who hasn't heard that into this concept and kind of reinforce it, so that we can get back to what's really good. All right, so what I'm doing now is making a basic track, and then we're going to apply these techniques to that track, okay? So let's go back to the desktop, and let's look at the tracks that we have so far. We've got our drums, okay? We can solo each one. Here's my drum. All right, cool. So the first thing we're going to do, as we always do, I'm going to get rid of this track because I don't need it, or that channel. All right, we're going to run everything through its own effect. I'm going to go ahead and put this on 2. I'm going to put my boo bass on 3, my drums on 4. All right, and then not only that, I'm going to put separate drums on different channel. So that's my kick. My snare is going to go on output number 1, which will put it on FX number 5. Let me see. All right, and my hi-hat is going to go to output number 2, which is going to put it on effect number 6. All right, hopefully everybody knows how that works with the FPC and using outputs. It's a very important tool. All right, so now we've got everything rocking the way we want to. I want to make sure I don't have any effects because I'm going to start from the ground level. All right. Now we're going to create that semicircle that we were talking about. Everybody knows that we have the master separator, but then each channel has a separating factor also, right? And the master affects everything, and then the particular channel will separate only that particular channel. So let's solo one channel at a time. That's my piano. Now we talked about that being panned to the left, and if we look at the semicircle on the page, it was panned pretty hard left. That piano was panned pretty hard left. So let's look at that, right? And text or video. I wish I was better at figuring this thing out. Got to work on that here. Oh, there we go. I got it. Alright, so you can see here where the piano is. It's actually, wow, okay, that's cool. It's pretty far left, so I'm going to go ahead and pan it far left. Josh says I'm not really sure how that works in the FPC. If you got time toward the end, sure, I'll show you that. That'd be my pleasure. Okay, so what I'm showing you now is where we decided, whoa, that's too fat. It's too done. Clear that. All right, so we decided to put our piano right here. That ain't good. I'm just learning with this new tool, guys. Yeah, 75%. Thank you, Prenda. I appreciate your input. 75%. Thank you, man. I'm so retarded sometimes. All right, let's go back to desktop, and then all right, I want that off of there. See, I'm really just learning how to use this thing, so bear with me just a little bit. All right, so we're back on the desktop. We're gonna do 75%, just like Brenda just suggested, and I appreciate that, by the way. All right, so I'm gonna go all the way to 75%. I think 75% might be a little bit too much. That's 75%. Let's go. It looks like 44%, but I get what you're saying. It does look like 75%, but it's turning out to be 44%. Let's go with 44. All right, now let's play it and listen. Okay. Now I can listen. And I remembered, I said, well, I want to make that far, so I don't want it to be so close to the listener, so I can bring down my volume. Remember, we said we're not going to have it so close to the listener, right? Then I can create a room using my reverb, and I'm going to use the reverb 2 this time because it shows us a picture of the space, and that's really what I want to do. Notice how it's circular, isn't that? Now they have different shapes too. I'm not saying that, but it kind of gives you an idea of what they're trying to do here. They're trying to show you this is the kind of room your sound is going to be in. It's going to be a circular room. Now I can change that shape of the room, and I can even change the size. See how that size will change based on me changing the size there? But I can also change the shape of the room. So I can change it into a diamond. I can change it into a square. Let's make it a square. That is too cool, by the way. Yeah, let's make it a square. Let's make it smaller. Actually, let's make it big because we said that big room is going to give you more distance, right? All right, now let's play that piano, see what happens. Beautiful. Okay, now if we're going to use any separation here, it's going to stretch that audio, it's going to stretch that reverb out. Now let's listen and find out how that works. Watch this. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and stretch my separation. Watch this. Can you hear how much the reverb comes out more? Watch, I'll turn it down. Alright, you see? You don't hear the reverb when I close the separation. When I open the master separation, you hear a lot more of that reverb. So the more separation, the more you're going to have to reduce the amount of reverb, or you can reduce the separation on the individual channel. I would preferably turn down my reverb or the feed into the reverb. This will control the feed into the reverb. Now you can use that separation and you won't have that increased reverb. Here we go. See what I'm saying? So now you get your distinction, but you don't get the distortion. I like that. That sounds like a Jesse Jackson line. All right, so there's the deal. That's what we're starting to do now. We're starting to tailor our sound. All right, so now let's move on to another thing. So we did that. There's another way we can do it though. We can change the amount of separation. We can leave the reverb the way it is and change the separation on the individual channel while separating the master. which will give us less of the reverb. Now here we're at full blast. All right, now let's go to the track, close its separation. Now a completely different thing happens here. When you close the separation, you get more of the panning, and I'm moving my mouse like I can put my mouse on my speaker, but I can't. Now you get more of the panning and just more of the instrument, and I like this choice better because now it's clean. My piano is separated in the mix, and it sounds so good. All right. So now you have a standalone piano sound that sounds very great, and it's surrounded by a reverb in a room by itself. And now we can move on to the next sound. All right, any questions? I'm going to stop right there. All right, can you guys hear the difference, and can you hear what I'm talking about? I know it's difficult because you're not in the room here, and I'm playing it through my monitors. I could put it through the audio, but you're not really going to hear the distinction, and it's hard for me to mix in these little headphones. Okay, cool. All right, who's running out on such an important class like this? Who's not here? We're gonna find you, and we will. I don't know what we'll do, but we'll find you. Okay, so here we go. So now that's a very good mix right there. I'm really proud of that. It sounds good all by itself. So now we have to do is just treat the next sounds coming through. So next one's going to be my boo bass. Let's go to it, solo that, and hit play. Okay, so what we're going to do is go to our board. We're going to look at what we decided to mix. Okay, yeah. All right, and we set our bass, which is over here, and I'm going to go ahead and use my wonderful drawing tool because you know now I'm in there like swimwear. All right, cool. Remember we said the bass is going to be panned to the right. That looks like it's a really hard right. And let's do that. And we said it was going to be a little bit closer to the listener. So let's move over to that and find out what that's going to sound like. Pretty cool, sis. Pretty sneaky, sis. Y'all remember that commercial? You guys are too young, probably. With the You Sunk My Battleship. You remember the Battleship game? And the girl sunk his ship, and he was like, "Pretty sneaky, sis." All right. Anyhow, that was back in the 70s. Here we go. So we said we're going to pan this hard, right? I'm going about 75. That's about 75%. Hit play. All right, so that sounds good. It's going to be closer to the listener, which we're already there already. I'll move it down just a little bit. So it is closer in terms of volume. Now let's go ahead and put a room on it. Let's give the bass a room. The bass needs to have a room. Let's stick with the square rooms today because I want to stick with that shape. All right. Since it's closer, the room should be smaller, right? Remember we talked about that? Now, when you see the size change, this is called diffusion, and sound breaks up differently in different shaped rooms. So right now we're going to stay with a square room. I want to do something small for this bass, keep it contained. Right? I don't want a big flubber, and if you think about it, it makes sense. You don't want your bass just drowning in a wash of reverb. It would sound really difficult to make out the distinction in what notes the bass player is playing. And you kind of want your bass to be distinct unless you're looking for that effect. All right, let's play it back. All right, sounds good, but you hear a lot of that reverb. Now we could begin to take out the wetness, or we can go back to our stereo separation because we have massive stereo separation on the master, and go ahead and reduce it. like we talked about before, and then you won't hear as much of that reverb, and it will be strongly panned to that right. Watch this. Good. Change the size a little bit. Beautiful. Bring in my piano. Woo! Not bad. Okay, so now all we have to do now is our drums, and I'm going to tell you what, I want my drums to be straight up down the middle, and we already talked about that in the first diagram. Okay, and yeah, that's some badass stuff we're doing right here, and this is just 3 tracks, and this is pretty cool. So again, you know, I'm trying to show you the simplicity and keep referring back to that diagram that we have. It's really simple. It's just about us changing our point of view and looking at things differently, and you can really do amazing stuff. All right, so we talked about our snare being in the middle, but we kind of have a whole drum kick, so we're going to put our drums straight up and down. Kick, snare, and then I'll put my hi-hat panned off to the right. All right, so kick and snare is going to be straight up and down. All right, so let's go back onto Adobe Audition. Let's go back to FL Studio. Can you guys tell that I'm a little distracted today? Good Lord. All right, so here we go. Just going to solo my drums. All right, in other words, we're just going to take off everything else, keep everything else open, hit play. All right, let's start with just the kick. And yes, we can give each one of these instruments their own reverb. Remember, we can use reverb very sparingly so the listener doesn't really have to hear the reverb. Sometimes we think that everything has to be so extreme, and it doesn't have to. So we can put a reverb on this kick, and most people say, well, that's going to make it sound funny. No, no, it won't, because we're going to use a small room. Remember, the kick's going to be right up in your face. We're going to use a small room. Now, I'm using the reverb too because it gives us a picture of what we're working with, but you don't have to use, you can, once you learn how to use these settings, you know, you don't need this diagram, but it does help to have the picture right in front of you. All right, so let's listen to this kick in different environments. That's too much. Hear that? Nice, but too much. Too much. Uh-oh. Better. Now I'm turning. Uh-oh. That's not cool. All right. It has a slight echo. All right. Now I want to turn down the amount of wetness. So it's just slightly. There we go. Now there's a pan on it. We want to turn down, I'm sorry, there's a stereo separation. We want to turn that down a little bit. There we go. Now you hear nothing but kick and a little bit of reverb trailing. All right. Let's get our snare right. Woo! All right. We said our snare is going to be very distant. Remember from the diagram? All right. We said our snare is going to be really far. It's way up there, right? Okay. All right, so. All right, so let's make our snare distant. Go back to our mixer. All right, and the first way we're going to make it distant. Remember I asked you guys, I taught you guys a couple things to make the snare distant. Give me one way to make the snare distant. Please tell me. It's right on the board, so you guys can cheat. How do I make that snare distant? No, we're not using EQ. No EQ. You're funny, dude. More reverb, yes. And what else? But not more reverb, not just more. I don't want you talking in terms of more or less. I want you talking in terms of what type of reverb. Please tell me how. What type of reverb? And don't say reverb 2. Lower volume, yes. Good. How else? Not more reverb, but okay, I'm going to answer it for you. A bigger reverb environment, bigger room, which is what it's almost what you're saying. More reverb, right? It's almost what you're saying, right? You guys are getting it right. Right after I say it, you guys type in big room size. All right, cool. All right, so all right, cool. So we're gonna do just that. We're gonna give it a big room. We're gonna use the box though. Still use the box. And give it a big room. All right, now let's hit it. Here, listen to it. I like that. Now we can use a little separation. Too much echo, I don't like that too much. Better. I like that. All right. I decided to close the separation so I can hear more of the sound. All right, let's go into the hi-hat. Besides being the most annoying hi-hat I ever heard, I really don't like that sound, so I'm going to change it just a little bit. Make it thinner, better. Give me a little reverb. I want this to be tight. Okay, there's a button here called mid side input, which I'm not going to use, by the way. So we won't talk about that today. All right, I'm going to go with that. It's small. It's giving me my echo that I want. You know, there's also another stereo separation here on the effect itself, but we're not going to deal with that today. I'm going to turn my separation down. I'm going to pan it, like I said, on the diagram to the left. My hi-hat's going to be close up to my listener. All right, hit playback with everything in. Woo! I like this. All right, and there you go. You start beginning. Yeah, you're starting to really now create a distinct mix. All right, you've got that separation. Each instrument is going to be clear. It's going to be crisp. It's going to have its own environment, and that's what we're doing. And we just did a circular mix based on the diagram that I showed you. I'm going to bring back up on the screen so that you can have a really clear look at it. All right, circular mix. We didn't use the bottom half of the circle because that's going to actually deal with surround sound mixing. But it would be the same exact principle. You draw more lines, and let me show you what that would look like. It would be the same principle if we did surround sound. You'd just draw more lines on the screen, and you do your mixing the same exact way behind the listener to the left and the right. All right. So there we go, guys. I want you to now to start applying this stuff to your mixes and going out and making some really genius music and having fun. No. Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate it. You said it's the best class. Hey, you encourage me. Now you make me want to top myself. That's a good thing. So this is really good. What does this? And let me ask the question that Gario's listening. I think, Gario, because you came in towards the end, you've kind of missed it. You said, what does this technique achieve? More crisp on the instruments, or just another way to attack the mix? Well, why don't you answer that question for me? What do you hear different? What do you hear differently after listening to that mix? Now you can go ahead there. While you're answering that, I'm going to go ahead and do some work here. Now you can go ahead and submix your drums through send, any one of these sends. Like I would go ahead and submix these drums with a Fruity compressor, put it on drums, boom, and then go ahead and just run my kick or whatever through that particular. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Good. I was hoping. I can't stand that hi-hat, man. It's just, it's annoying. I got to change it right now. Okay, so you don't know. All right, cool. That's probably sometimes the wisest thing we can say when we really don't know. Well, you're not going to really hear it, and unfortunately, Gary, since you came in on the end, I'm going to ask you to watch the and I know you're going to jump on me about is it ready, but I'm going to ask you to watch the replay of this. One of the things that you're going to achieve is a much more clearer recording, a distinct recording where your sounds have their own personality and they have their own. No, it's not ready yet. Your sounds are going to have their own lane so that they can flourish. When you hear professional mixes, what you hear is distinction. When you hear non-professional mixes, you hear muddiness, you hear mixing. I know. You hear mixing. Yeah. So this is like Prenda's saying, this is a visual way to achieve the kind of mix that is more professional. So watch this video once I get it up. I'm gonna try and get it up there tonight. I'm trying to fix that whole issue tonight. Yeah, as you can see, I'm doing a lot of different things. Many of you may have seen that beat class is kind of in the middle of redesign, if you haven't seen that. So there's a lot of stuff going on in my life. If you guys haven't seen it yet, take a look and give me feedback. So yeah, you'll see. Watch the class and you'll see exactly what it does to your mix. Let me change these hi-hats because they're getting on my nerves, and then we'll wrap up the class. And I think there was one question that Josh had about What did you have a question about? About the FPC? All right, I'll show you that in just 2 seconds. If you're still there, Josh, are you awake? Wake up, Josh. Josh. Josh is sleeping. I'm telling you. He works hard. I knew you were. I always knew you were her. Are you from St. Louis, man? He said he's her. I'm her. Word up, Nelly. I'm giving you a hard time today. Don't get me, Josh. Don't beat me up, man. Looking for a hi-hat. Can a brother get a hi-hat? What do I need to get a hi-hat around this? Alright, that one. Wow, that sucks. One of the things I've learned about mixing over the years is anything can get better if you just keep working at it. And sometimes we got to get out of the fast food mindset and just be patient enough to work our music and until it sounds good. Sometimes we want things instantly, and because we watch everything happen so quickly in front of us that we try and imitate that, but we need to just be patient sometimes and just work our craft, and it'll come out good. And I feel like there needs to be another instrument. I'm going to go over just a little bit longer today. I feel like there needs to be now, you know, you need like some horns in there or something to make it really hot, you know. Anyhow, I could come up with a million things and turn this into a hot song. Definitely would get some live drums on that and make it what you want it to make. And, all right, so, Josh, do you still need that question answered? Brenda said, I like it when you do that right there. That's funny. Do you still need that explained, the FPC? Hello? Okay, cool. All right, so let's do that real quick. All right, so when you open up the FPC, you go to your channels. Okay, cool. No problem. Oh no, I'm you know me, man. I'm down. I'm down. All right, so when you open up, he said Yoda. When you open this up, right, the FPC. Okay, it's like any other sound. All right. You can set the effect channel for the whole FPC. In other words, just go ahead and left click on the channel, and then you can move this to whatever effect channel you want. Let's say we put on 2. But now let's say you want each pad to have its own effect channel. Well, then all you have to do is just click the pad that you want to give an output to, and then assign it to an output. 1, this could be 2, this could be 3, this could be 4. It's up to you, whatever number you want to give them. Alright, so now the overall FPC is going through effect number 2, but when you set the output to 1, it slides it over just that instrument over to the next FX output. So 1 would be FX3, 2 would be FX4. My bad. 1 would be 1 would be FX3 because the overall is FX2, and so using the output 1 for this drum would put it out of FX slot number 3. 2 would go to 4, 3 would go to 5, 4 would go to 6. And you can see how that works, because watch this. When I go ahead and hit here, see, kick goes out 3, snare goes out 4, and so forth. Got it? All right, cool. Exactly. Just brings it up 1. Now you can have complete control over the volumes and the effects over each individual instrument and the EQ and everything else in the compression, and it makes for way better cleaning sounding drums using the FPC. I can't really get used to those drums, man. Alright, so questions before we are out, before I kick you guys out? Before I say get out of here. Are you leaving that? I didn't really mean get out, man. Don't feel bad. All right, well, good. Great class. Thank you so much. Had a good time. Have a great night. You guys get rest. Do whatever it is you do. Keep making music. And thanks for coming to Fruity Loops University. I'm King David. One love. Peace.